O'Hare Airport in Chicago was named after him. And he happened to be the son of Easy Eddie. His father taught him that, not just by words, but by example. We have a responsibility to ourselves, to God, to the world, and to each other. When people trust us, our family, our friends, our employees, and the public, that trust is what gives us real credibility. It is that trust alone that brings people to actually make a commitment to the cause that we're representing. The Mafatlal family, at one time they were extremely powerful in India. And then so many things changed with government policies, and there was fighting among the family members and everything else. So they were not on such a level anymore. But recently, one of our dear friends, who happens to be the uncle of Rajiv's wife, a great example for him, Rishikesh Mafatlal, their company went through a very, very difficult challenge where they were going through something like bankruptcy, some sort of reorganization where they had to sell off massive assets. But in the process, in India, when you have tens and thousands of workers, you can't just send them home. You'll get put in jail for that. You have to compensate for them. There was so much pressure. He was losing massive amounts of money every day. He couldn't close it. He couldn't keep it open. There were all kinds of legal issues. There were all kinds of permission issues. It took years. And he had to really scale down things. And most of the leadership in his company, they were happy to work for practically nothing, even though they were being offered huge salaries in various parts of the world, because they believed so much in the integrity of the company. And together they brought it up to a very stable and successful level. And he's humble. He says, I could only do it because these people trusted me so much. Last year I spoke at the Ford Motor Company. Now, my father was an Edsel dealer, and he went in total bankruptcy. That's a kind of Ford. So our family's not so inclined toward the Ford Motor Company. That's a long story, which could be another class, actually. When I went there, there was 3 directors of international departments for the Ford Motor Company. And I asked them, how long have you worked here? They both said all 3 of them said they were working for Ford for over 30 years. And all 3 of them said their parents, their fathers, worked for Ford for 40 years before they retired. And their grandfathers worked for Ford for 40 years before they retired. And their great-grandfathers did the same. You see, it's not a matter of how much money they get only. Somehow or other, they have a real commitment. Because through it all, they've developed a certain type of trust. The greatest wealth we can gain in this world is not just how much we have. And then when we die, people just say, oh, so what? Because, you know, I'm a Swami. I haven't had a bank account since 1969 or signed a check since then. And I think it was about $8 or something like that. But I see things and I travel the world. And when you have a lot, people may speak respectfully to you. But in their hearts, oftentimes, they envy you. And envy is a type of hatred. They really would like to see you fall, even though they're treating you very nicely. And relationships based on those things are quite superficial, even if there is some affection. But people love you for your integrity. People love you because they trust your character. To gain the trust of our family, to gain the trust of our society and of the world, of our employees, whatever, due to our integrity, that is wealth. That is a rich person. When Arvind Moffatlal passed away earlier this year or last year, there were thousands of people I saw who were really, really crying because they loved him. He was the Humanitarian of the Year according to the International Lions Club some years ago. And it was based on his love and devotion to Ram, his beloved Lord. This is the great need of this world, but how? How to live with integrity when there are so many temptations and fears and so many reasons to compromise? For that, we require a strong foundation. A beautiful building. Yes, just day before yesterday we were at Shashant and Namrata's house. It's a beautiful home, nice furniture and nice architecture. But how many people have come to your home and said, you have a fantastic foundation underneath it? Anyone ever say that? Nobody really talks about the foundation. But the fact is, if your foundation's weak, if a storm comes, everything you build upon it will crumble and fall. It is the foundation that sustains whatever we have done. In this world, a place of dualities, honor, dishonor, success, failure, pleasure, pain, happiness, distress, victory, defeat, they're always changing, like the changing of seasons. There's winter, spring, summer, fall. In India we have monsoons, a fifth season. There will be storms in our life. And there will also be sunny days in our life. How do we resist becoming arrogant and condescending toward others during the sunny days of our great achievements? And how do we resist becoming envious and falling to immorality and temptation and fear when the storms of great trials and tribulations come before us? It becomes natural if we have an inner foundation of spiritual character. The Bible tells like this: if you build your house on shifting sand, when the storm comes, it will crumble. If you build your house on solid rock, no storm can knock it down. The storms are there. And what is that foundation? That foundation is the integrity of our character that is built on inner fulfillment. I'm going to tell a story because Shashant and Namrita asked me to tell this story. I hope it fits in with what I'm saying. I'm going to try to connect it. We're talking about this need for inner fulfillment. My mother and father, when I went to India in 1970, I really broke their hearts. It's written about in this book, The Journey Home, and my friends Stuart Sender and Shyam Sundar, they're making a documentary about this book, if you'd like to speak to them. But I told them I was going to Europe with my friend Gary for a summer vacation between college semesters, and I'll be back for my next semester in college. That was 2.5 months later. 2.5 months passed. They heard nothing from me. I was 19 years old, the middle son. My older brother's son is here now, Willie. And 3 months passed. They heard nothing from me. And I was hitchhiking because I didn't have any money. So they had no way of communicating with me. By God's grace, there were no cell phones in those days. By God's grace, there was no internet in those days. I just had all facility to disappear. Now, 4 months passed. They heard nothing from me. The college semester already started and I wasn't there. Now, as mothers and fathers, many of you, what would be going through your heart? Finally, 4.5 months later, they got an aerogram, the cheapest possible postage letter. And it said that I have been seriously considering life. I have seen the world through the window of a Western man's eyes. For 19 years, I thought I was really old in those days. I was about to be 20. My parents thought I was a baby, but I thought I was an old wise man. I said, now I want to see the world through the windows of the eyes of the people of the East. I am hitchhiking to India. And I said, and Gary's no longer with me. He went to Israel. So here they get this letter that now I'm all alone. And I'm hitchhiking to India without any money. And they had no way to contact me to say, please come home. That letter that they receive was postmarked Iran. So they knew I was not turning back. And ultimately I came to India and went to the Himalayas and became a sadhu and traveled around with a little begging pot and was going to many rishis and sages and lamas and babas, traveling, trying to find God, trying to find that spiritual foundation in my life. And I don't recommend anybody to do what I did, but it was my calling and I did it. You could learn all the same things in your bedroom if you just have a little more intelligence than me. But I traveled, especially if you visit Vaisheshika Prabhu's temple. But I traveled, and eventually I came to Vrindavan, the holy place of Krishna, where I met my guru, Srila Prabhupada. And his compassion, his wisdom, and how he represented such an ancient tradition in such a practical way deeply moved me. And I dedicated my life to trying to assist him in this way. You see, he didn't teach a sectarian concept. He taught that the essence of all spiritual processes, of all religion, the very essence of human life, is to see everyone with an equal vision. And the only way we could do that is if we awaken that love for God within ourselves. And we become instruments of that love. George Harrison came to our Guru when he was in the Beatles. And he asked, should I move into your temple? And Shyam Sundar was his best friend. And Prabhupada said, no, don't shave your head. Don't move into the temple. Don't change your clothes. Be a Beatle. But try to give people a deep spiritual experience through your music. To raise their consciousness. And that's what he dedicated the rest of his life to. And he transformed millions of lives. But anyways, I was away and my parents were home. And finally, after some years, I came home. And that's a very interesting story, because it was a culture shock for them. They're a middle, kind of a little bit of an upper middle class Jewish family, quite conservative. And I was a hardcore sadhu from the Hindu tradition of bhakti. And I came in with my begging pot and my sadhu robes, and I had matted hair, and I sat on the floor of their house, and they didn't know what I was. And I didn't know what they were either, because I was living in caves and jungles, and now I'm in a nice house. They said, we're so glad you're home. And I was kind of a little out of touch with things. I didn't even put this in this book. But they said, do you like being home? I said, I like being with you, but your home is Maya. And they said, what is Maya? And I said, illusion. Anyways, finally in 1989, they came to India to visit me. And their whole lives changed. When they met people like, actually, Rajesh Talwar, he came with me on this expedition. He could be the witness. But they met people like Rajiv and Sanjeev, and such beautiful people. Their hearts completely changed. They felt these are the most beautiful people we've ever met in our lives. And they saw some of the work we were doing, and they became so proud. So I remember one day there was a kirtan in our temple, and I saw my mother. She was about 70 years old then. She was dancing in kirtan with Rajiv's wife's grandmother. I thought that was really a culture shock for me. And then I saw my father dancing with the brahmacharis, with the monks. That was really... And they were crying every night, my parents, and embracing me. We're so proud of you, we're so proud of you. We're so happy you hitchhiked to India. It was worth it. But we decided to do some sightseeing. How many of you have been to Elephanta, the islands? You take a boat from the gateway of India near the Taj Mahal Hotel. Anyways, Rajesh, this was his idea. Do you remember? Yes, sir. And first thing that happened is we go on this little ferry and we get there and we're walking. And their lives have been changed, they're transformed, they're happy, everything's been so positive. They've been meeting beautiful people, they've been eating wonderful prasad, they've been seeing incredible projects, and now they're going to see India beyond just the people. And we start walking This is in 89. It was just a forest pathway, right? And the first thing that happened is mosquitoes attacked. And my mother was saying, there's mosquitoes. Do they have malaria? And I couldn't lie to her. I said, I don't think so. That means they might? I said, I don't think so. Because Swamis have to tell the truth, you know, even to their parents. So, we're walking, and my mother has her purse. In her purse, all the valuables of my mother and my father were contained, because they didn't want to leave them just in the room they were staying. Their airline tickets. In those days, you needed tickets. Their passports, visas, all their credit cards, all their cash, and my mother's jewelry was in that purse. Because my mother was very, very, what's the word? Very thoughtful to every detail. She would never lose anything. Until this day. A very large, angry male monkey jumped right in front of her and looked at the purse. And this monkey was, I'm not going to go into details, he was a brown monkey with a pink face and green eyes, and he showed his teeth. Very large fangs coming from the top and bottom. And monkeys really know how to psychologically invoke fear in your heart. And he opened his mouth his gums showed and his teeth showed, and he screamed. Kind of like a monkey. So. But you're laughing. Nobody was laughing when he did it. My mother froze. He was looking right at her, and then he grabbed her purse. And he pulled it, and my mother pulled it, and he pulled it, and my mother pulled it, and he pulled it, and she was screaming, and the monkey was screeching. My mother was going, and I went to get a stick. And my father said, everything is in that purse. Everything of value is in that purse. And I think you shouldn't have said that because the monkey probably understood. The monkey pulled harder and my mother pulled harder, and then the monkey went and jumped right into my mother's face almost. He just jumped at her. And it was too much for her. She let go. And the monkey stole the purse and ran away, climbed a tree, went into a branch of a big peepal tree, and started opening the purse. Now my mother and father looked up at the monkey. It was a high branch. And then they looked at me. And I don't know where you were at that time. You may have gone to get some soft drink for them or something. I don't remember if you were there or not. I just remember them looking at me. And they both said, you are the one that brought us here. What are you going to do about this? Everything of value is in that purse. And if you remember, because many of you have connections with India, in 1989 there was a lot of bureaucracy to get a new passport, to get a new visa, to get new airline tickets, to get credit cards canceled and reissued. Not to speak of the loss of all the cash. Could have taken weeks and weeks of just standing in lines in these different offices all day. And they looked at me, what are you going to do? I closed my eyes and I prayed, because I didn't know what to do. I couldn't climb up that tree. And I just prayed, Krishna, save me. And then I opened my eyes. And I happened to see, about half a block away, on this road, this dirt road, there was a fruit vendor with one of those little push carts with wheels, and he had a pile of food on it. So I ran over to him, and I'm a Swami. I put out my cloth and said, you know, ek kela, one banana. That's what they, and he said he wanted 10 rupees for one banana, because I have light skin. Bananas were not 10 rupees each, but he was really overcharging me. And I just said, you know, bakshish, bakshish, bakshish. And he said, 10 rupee, 10 rupee. And I said, bakshish, bakshish, Swami, I Swami, bakshish. He said, no, 10 rupee, 10 rupee. He got really angry. And I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money. The monkey had all the money. So sometimes when you're in a desperate situation, you have to act in ways that you don't ordinarily do. Sometimes poverty can bring the worst out, even in good people. So at that moment, I was in poverty. I took a banana and stole it. And he started screaming at me. He actually attacked me, and I ran away. And he was running after me, and I was running, and he was running. And then, by Krishna's grace, this is my faith, a different monkey attacked his fruit cart. So he turned around because, you know, to try to get one banana from me, he was going to lose all his bananas to this monkey. So he went and chased, and I got away. And then I went up to that tree, and I saw the monkey, and I showed him the banana. Can I tell you what that monkey was doing when I approached him? I'll never forget. He was in the process of chewing and eating my mother's American Express credit card. And I showed him the banana. He had it in his mouth, the Express card, but he stopped chewing as he looked at the banana. And I threw it. And I'm not a good thrower, because, you know, I haven't really played with balls since I was a little boy. So I threw it, and it wasn't a good shot. But that worked in a favorable way, because the monkey actually had to jump to catch the banana. And in the process of jumping, the credit card fell out of his mouth, and the purse fell to the ground. And I put the credit card in the purse, and I closed it, and I very proudly presented it to my mother. And she said, she started to cry in happiness. She said, that was really intelligent what you just did. I'm so proud of you. And she embraced me, and then my father embraced me. He said, son, you outsmarted that monkey. That was brilliant how you did that. Because he's a businessman. He was a businessman all his life. So for the first time, I think in my life, he was impressed by my business capabilities. And when I came home months later, oh, let me tell you one other thing. My mother took 20 rupees out of her purse and said, go pay the fruit vendor. I forgot all about him. That's why we need ladies in our life to remember these things, even Swamis. So I went and gave him 20 rupees. The fruit vendor was so happy. My parents were so happy. And I looked up at the monkey eating the banana. He was so happy. Well, what do you call it? A win-win solution. Everyone was happy. And when I came home, my parents were so proud and so happy with everything they experienced, and the highlight was the monkey. And my brother is Jewish. He married a Catholic girl. And when they had their first child, they were wondering, should we get it baptized in the church or blessed in the synagogue? And my mother and father said, your brother is a priest. Have the child blessed and baptized in the Hare Krishna temple in Tucson, Arizona, which we did for his sister. And then they enjoyed that event so much that when Willie was born, he was also blessed in the temple. You don't remember because you were an infant, but it was very nice. And my mother said, give him a Krishna name. So we gave him the name Balaram, and his sister Saraswati, which is like their, I don't even know if you know that you were given that name. So back to our narration. Integrity. We have the foundation to actually live with character, despite the monkey attacks that come in various ways in our life. When we have a sacred higher principle that brings us fulfillment. You see, the mind is like a monkey. And that higher principle of inner fulfillment, of a connection with God, of living with compassion, of living with dignity, that's like the banana. And we can easily let go of our restless, immoral, hurtful ways if we replace it with something that's more meaningful, more fulfillment. And that's connecting with our own souls, with God, and living with integrity and character. It is said that within each and every one of us there's a good dog and a bad dog. The bad dog represents arrogance, hate, envy, greed, selfish lust. And the good dog, humility, compassion, morality, ethics, love. And each of those dogs are crying for our attention. And according to which one we feed most, those dogs become powerful and their voice becomes very strong. I think many of us have the experience of that bad dog barking. You don't have to raise your hand, but I think we have had that experience of that bad dog barking and trying to dictate what we speak and what we do in our life. And the good dog sometimes is like, which of those dogs is going to win? The one that we choose to feed. With every choice we make in our life, we are either feeding our good dog or our bad dog. Dharma. Dharma means to feed the good dog by making choices that are based on the foundation of integrity and character. And not giving in to that bad dog, even if we have so much to gain or so much to lose by doing so. And that is what makes a person great. Srila Prabhupada, he said the greatness of a person has to be estimated by how that person can tolerate provoking situations. And that's why spiritual practice and satsang, associating with spiritual people, is very important. Because it establishes that foundation. Or in reference to a tree, It deepens and broadens our roots. On Friday night, we gave the example of the redwood forest. Just yesterday, we went to one. This underground secret of that redwood forest. These trees grow for thousands of years old. They're the widest, highest trees on the planet. And over those thousands of years that they're growing, they pass through massive storms, devastating earthquakes, and they keep growing. Because the roots grow outward, underground, and reach out to each other. And all the different roots of each tree embrace, intertwine with the roots of other trees, and make a permanent bond. And in this way, every tree in the whole forest is connected with every other tree through the roots. And whatever storms or earthquakes come, they're there to hold each other up. This is the way our families should be. This is the way our friendships should be. This is the way our companies should be. This is the way our society, and this is how this is how the world will actually come out from all of the crises that it's going through. Is when we find a higher principle by which we connect to. The roots of the affection and care of our hearts. Beyond all our differences and all our selfish inclinations, we're there for each other. That's a quality fulfilling life. And the Bhagavad Purana tells if we water the root of a tree, every part of the tree receives that water. And God is the root of all existence. When we go through our yoga, through our spiritual practice, through our bhakti, we chant God's names for this person, to make that connection, to water that root. And if we're actually developing that love for God, it's not just a matter of talk. There's so many, in today's age, with the Twitter and the Facebook and the TV and the entertainment industry and all the different ways that people are communicating, there's so much emphasis on what we speak, how we speak it, what we look like, what is our personality. But that's not going to make such a big difference in the world. What do we do? What is our character? What is our integrity? That's what's going to make a difference. To love God, it's not a cheap thing. It means to live with compassion, with forgiveness, with self-control, with love. That's the greatest need in politics. That's the greatest need in business. That's the greatest need in family. That's the greatest need, believe it or not, in religion. Because it's as absent in religion as it is in any other sphere of life. Seeking the essence. And we can all do that. Just by giving some time. And building that foundation by which we earn with integrity and we spend with compassion as God's trustees of God's treasures. When I was at the House of Lords, I spoke one thing that got the best ovation. I said, you can understand how rich you are by trying to find out how many things you have that money cannot buy. That's real wealth. To love, to be loved, and to be an instrument of that love. And to be dynamic, competitive, productive, with that motivation as the very core of our lives. Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, we want to request you to please sit down and we'll have a few question answers. I have the mic with me. If any of you have any questions, if there's anything, we have a mic behind. We'd be happy to pass it around. If you have any questions for Maharaj about business, about spirituality, blending the two, we'd be happy to. Yes.
Well, since no one is asking, I just wanted to make a small comment.
Okay, there's a mic with me.
Swamiji, you will recognize my voice at least. I was the one who put you on the spot the other day with the other question. Not to ask a question today since no one's asking, I just wanted to make a comment. As you're speaking, the recurrent thought comes again and again. How does a person born in Chicago go to India and become a Swami? You may choose to answer the question or you may not. My own thought went back to a movie that I saw, Ratatouille, which is about a rat trying to become a cook. And throughout that movie, the theme is that anyone can cook. And there are critics who sort of are against the view and they say that everyone cannot cook. And towards the end of the movie, it says, that's the punchline, it says that anyone can cook does not mean anyone can cook. It means a great cook can come out of anywhere. And so in that sense, a great Swami can come out of anywhere. Maybe you can expound a little bit more on your personal history, if you choose to, on the journey from Chicago to India, at least the root of it, what compelled you to take that step.
When I came to Mumbai, in those days it was Bombay, I was told that there were more rats than people. So I felt right at home. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us a jewel of a verse that gives so much hope to all of us. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Satya Kapunoi Sravanadi Sudichiti Koriyayudoi. That this love of God, this compassion, this realization of my own eternal, indestructible self, it is within everyone. It simply has to be awakened. It's like a seed that just needs to be watered and protected. It doesn't matter if we're rich or poor. Some people are in the illusion that only poor people can become truly spiritual. It doesn't matter. We can be billionaires, or we can be living in a little village. We can be PhD professors or illiterate. We could be men or women from the east or from the west. We could be old or young. It's our nature. Najayate mariyate vakadachit, that the soul is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. It's undying. And within that soul, mamayavam so jivaloke, we are all part of God. And God is all good. Krishna is all merciful and all loving, has many names. And we are a part of that God. We're full of light. And that light could illuminate the whole world. That is the potential. It's just a matter of the sincerity of reconnecting. That's what yoga or religion is meant to do. Reconnect us with our true nature, with God, and to be instruments of love. And Krishna wanted to really emphatically give everyone hope. That's why he spoke the Gita on a battlefield. Because Arjuna was the least likely person to become a saint. He was a soldier who was about to fight. And it was a really, really taxing battle, Kurukshetra. And he was a family man with so many children and wives and all of that. Why did Krishna speak the Gita to a yogi in the Himalayas who gave up everything and only had his little kopan? He spoke to Arjuna. And after Arjuna listened to the Gita, Krishna told him that I want you to win this war, and I want you and your brothers to live in the palaces of the kings of the entire world. This knowledge is for everyone, because it's simply meant to awaken who we really are. It's meant to give us an appreciation of the treasure we already have. And instead of desperately trying to fill an emptiness within us by getting more power and more prestige and more money and more this and more that and never really being satisfied, through our work, through our wealth, through our influence, through whatever we have, we're actually giving the treasure of the love